7, 8,
Hold on. 7, 8.
and 10.
So far, so good. Who's the next name?
Joshua Cortez.
Okay.
1301 Bravo. 2402 Charlie. Holy fuck it. All right, there's 3103 Bravo. 4201 Charlie. 555. 5 is 403 Charlie. 65121 Delta. 7 is 104 Charlie. 8 is 201 Bravo. 9 is 401 Bravo. 10 is 302 Charlie. 11 5211 Alpha.
And circled.
1 2 7 8 11.
All right, that's got errors.
It's got errors.
Yeah. So we'll come back to it. Let's get the rest of them in.
Isaac
Hold on.
is our next person. I can run through those again if you want.
After we get everybody else.
All right.
Because they'll probably have to correct. Knowing where it's the school it's from, there are errors. Okay.
Isaac Mackenzie, I think is.
Yeah.
All right. 1401 Bravo. 2403 Bravo. 3103 Bravo. 4105 Charlie. 5 5221 Delta. 6 301 Charlie. 7 303 Charlie. 8 203 Charlie. 9 204 Charlie. 10 5231 Delta. 11 404 Charlie.
Okay, circle.
1 3 6 8 10.
All right.
Goodness. People need to check their damn writing. It's not that hard. Gabrique?
Yeah.
Gabrique?
Gabrick.
All right. 1 103 Charlie. 2 105 Charlie. 3 5132 Delta. 4 403 Charlie. 5 203 Charlie. 6 5231 Delta. 7 301 Charlie. 8 303 Charlie. 9 201 Charlie. 10 404 Charlie. 11 405 Charlie.
Okay.
1 4 6 7 9.
Okay. All right. So these two recorded theirs. Okay.
1 4
You
0.
can just name them.
Just
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to say 1, 2. You can
Oh.
just give me, but I'll just follow it.
Just 401 Charlie.
Yeah.
Charlie. 5121 Delta. 302 Charlie. 555. 301 Charlie. 101 Charlie. 112 Charlie. 202 Charlie. 5221 Delta. 102 Charlie.
And the circled ones 1, 5, 6, 8,
Negative.
and 10.
I got 1. 1 4
6,
8.
okay, so we did change something there. See that one. I will verify. Alright, and then who's the other one?
Handwriting they teach our kids these days?
They don't teach me.
In the box, Jen. Don't blame me.
I just got to see.
That's all that was in there.
There should be more in
what am I writing scores on, by the way? No idea. He told me I was going to write scores down.
Okay, so I read through the
So she's going to print them out?
Right.
I was asking Ross. I said, hey, Ross, I don't know if I can see down there. He goes, that's all right. Just listen to the scores as they're read out. And I go, well, from where I was sitting, the guy who's reading the scores or announcing the scores says that he needs help seeing the scores too. I said, we got any binoculars? This is not good.
Alright, there's for you.
It's better. Huh.
Alright, let me run these down.
That's the right.
I'll take them.
I just started my socks again.
Yeah?
They seem to did a very good job.
Yep.
So,
It was absolutely needed because I went a year like focused on stuff and I actually gained a lot.
I'll just sit here. I think you need a new cable. I might have.
I have several.
Get some sheets to somebody.
Yeah, I just gotta make some copies. Good afternoon and welcome to Hudson Middle. In line with the WIAA and the Big Rivers Conference, Hudson High School requires good sportsmanship at education-based interscholastic events. Admission to the event is a privilege, and with that privilege comes responsibility. Responsibility to conduct oneself in a respectful manner where the meet is enjoyable for other fans and participants. Together we can support this effort by appreciating the efforts of all teams, the coaches, and the officials in a positive manner. We all play an important role in providing opportunities for all participants to compete in a healthy and safe environment. Additionally, please be reminded that state law prohibits the use of alcohol and tobacco products in an area used by public schools. Finally, please no flash photography during the meet, and please quiet during the dives.
I don't think they knew all the officials who they were going to be. They were still trying to figure that out when I was down there, remember?
This is a dive order for the dive meet today. Diving first from Eau Claire Alliance, Gabrick Hollenbeck. Diving second from Eau Claire Alliance, Xander Moore. Diving third from Hudson, Isaac McKenzie. Diving fourth from Rice Lake, Nathan Jondro. Diving fifth from River Falls, Gush Schmidt-Mischke. Diving sixth from Eau Claire Alliance, Keegan Black. Diving 7th from Rice Lake, Joshua Cortez. Diving 8th from Rice Lake, Jacob Jondro. And diving 9th from River Falls, Tristan Patz.
Can you just quietly run through them real quick for us again? The order again, Gabrick, Xander,
Xander,
Isaac, Jacob.
I got
Oh, Nathan. Okay, so that's where I couldn't.
Nathan, then Gus,
Yep.
Keegan,
Joshua,
then
then
Jacob, then Tristan.
Okay. So you need a pencil. Do you know how to write on this? No, do you know what you need to do? Okay.
Write the numbers down.
So for round 1, you just need to write it. Here, you need to come over here. Actually, no, let's move this. You can go right here.
I think we're ready to start. Round 1, first diver is Gabrick from Eau Claire Alliance. Dive number 103C, a forward 1 1/2 somersault, tuck position, difficulty 1.6. Scores 6, 6, 5, 6, 7, 7, 8. 6? 6.5. 5.5, sorry. The last one.
I have a 6, 6, 5, and
6, 6, 5.5, 6, 7, 7, 6.5. Up next, Xander from Eau Claire Alliance, dive 401C, inward dive, tuck position, difficulty 1.4. Scores 3.5, 4.5, 3.5, 4.5, 4, 4.5. And Al, I can't see yours. 4. Next up, Isaac from Hudson, dive 401B, inward dive, pike position, difficulty 1.5. Scores 7.5, 7, 7.5, 7, 7.5. What's that one say? I can't see that one.
I got 8,
8, 8.5. Next up, Nathan from Rice Lake, dive 401B, inward dive, pike position, 1.5. Scores 5.5, 5, 5, 5.5, 7, 5.5, 6.5. Next up, Gus from River Falls, dive 401C, inward dive, tuck position, difficulty 1.4. Scores 4.5, 5, 4.5, 5, 5.5, 6, 5.5. Next up, Keegan from Eau Claire, dive 401B, inward dive, pike position, difficulty 1.5. Scores 5.5, 5.5, 5.5, 6, 6.5, 6, 6. Next up, Joshua from Rice Lake, dive 301B, reverse dive, pike position, 1.7. Scores 4, 5.5, 4, 4.5, 5.5, 5.5, 5.5. Next up, Jacob from Rice Lake, dive 301B, reverse dive, pike position, 1.7. Scores 5.5, 6.5, 5.5, 7.5, 7.5, 6, 6.5. Next up, Tristan from River Falls, dive 10. Okay. Scores again, please. 5.5, 6.5, 5.5, 7.5, 7.5, 6, 6.5. Next up, Tristan, River Falls, dive 103B. Hold on. Ready to continue now? Sorry. Tristan, dive 103B, forward 1.5 somersault, pike position, difficulty 1.7. Judges' scores: 4.5, 5.5, 5, 5, 5.5, 5, 6. Moving on to round 2. First up, Gabrick, dive 105C, forward 2.5 somersaults, tuck position 2.4. Scores: 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 6.5, 7, 7, 6.5. Next up, Xander. Dive 402C, inward one somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores: 3.5, 4, 3.5, 4, 3.5, 3.5, 4. Next up, Isaac. Dive 403B, inward 1.5 somersault, pike position 2.4. Scores: 5, 6, 5, 7, 5.5, 6, 7.5. Next up, Nathan. Dive 5211A. Back dive, 1/2 twist, straight position, 1.8. Scores: 3.5, 3, 3.5, 3.5, 4, 4, 4. Next up, Gus. Dive 402C, inward one somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores: 4.5, 5, 4.5, 4.5, 5.5, 4.5, 4. Next up, Keegan. Dive 402C, inward one somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 6 1/2, 5 1/2, 6, 5, 6 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2. Next up, Joshua. Dive 402C, inward 1 somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 6, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6, 6, 4 1/2. Next up, Jacob. Dive 302B. Reverse 1 somersault, pike position 1.7. Scores 6, 6 1/2, 4 1/2, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 5 1/2, 6. Next up, Tristan. Dive 104C, forward 2 somersault, tuck position 2.2. Scores 5, 6, 6, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2. Now starting round 3. Gabrick, dive 5-1-3-2-D, forward 1 1/2 somersault, 1 twist, free position 2.2. Scores 6, 6, 5 1/2, 6, 5 1/2, 6 1/2, 6 1/2. Next up, Xander. Dive 103C, forward 1 1/2 somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 4, 4, 3 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4 1/2, 4 1/2. Next up, Isaac. Dive 103B, forward 1 1/2 somersault, pike position 1.7. Scores 7 1/2, 7 1/2, 7 1/2, 8 1/2, 6 1/2, 7 1/2, 9. Next up, Nathan. Dive 202C, back 1 somersault, tuck position 1.5. Scores 3, 4 and 1/2, 4, 4, 4, 3 and 1/2, 5. Next up, Gus with dive 5-1-2-1-D. Forward, 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position, 1.7. Scores 5, 4 and 1/2, 5, 4, 4 and 1/2, 5, 4 and 1/2. Next up, Keegan with dive 103B. Forward, 1 and 1/2 somersault, pike position, 1.7. Scores 7 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 7 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 7, 7 and 1/2. Next up, Joshua, dive 103B. Forward, 1 and 1/2 somersault, pike position, 1.7. Scores 5 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 4 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 6, 6, 6. Next up, Jacob, dive 104C. Forward, 2 somersault, tuck position, 2.2. Scores 6, 5, 5 and 1/2, 3 and 1/2, 5, 5 and 1/2, 6. Next up, Tristan with dive 401C, inward dive, tuck position, 1.4. Scores 5 and 1/2, 7, 6, 6, 7, 7 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2. Now beginning round 4. Gabrick, dive 403C, inward 1 and 1/2 somersault, tuck position, 2.2. Scores 6 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 7 and 1/2. Next up, Xander, dive 104C, forward 2 somersault, tuck position, 2.2. Scores 1, 1, 1 and 1/2, 1 and 1/2, 2, 1 and 1/2, 3. Next up, Isaac. Dive 105C. Forward, 2 and 1/2 somersault, tuck position, 2.4. Scores 5, 5 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 7. Next up, Nathan with dive 103B. Forward, 1 and 1/2 somersault, pike position, 1.7.
So still the same number, but it's a C, and then it's a what tip difficulty? 1.6.
The dive is changed. It's now 103C, which is a forward 1 and 1/2 somersault, tuck position, 1.6. Scores 5, 5 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 5, 5, 5 and 1/2, 5. Next up, Gus with dive 302C, reverse 1 somersault, tuck position, 1.6. Scores 6 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 5, 6, 5 and 1/2. Next up, Keegan, dive 104B, forward 2 somersault, pike position, 2.3. Scores 5, 4 and 1/2, 5, 4 and 1/2, 4 and 1/2, 5, 5 and 1/2. Next up, Joshua with dive 201C, back dive, tuck position, 1.5. Scores 5, 5 and 1/2, 4 and 1/2, 5, 6 and 1/2, 6, 4 and 1/2. Next up, Jacob, dive 5211A, back dive, 1/2 twist, straight position, 1.8. Scores 7 1/2, 6, 5 1/2, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 7. Next up, Tristan, dive 403C, inward, 1 1/2 somersault, tuck position, 2.2. Scores 4, 5 1/2, 5, 5, 5, 4 1/2, 5 1/2. Now beginning round 5. First up, Gabrick with dive 203C, back 1 1/2 somersault, tuck position 2.0. Scores 7, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 8, 7, 7, 6 1/2. Next up, Xander with dive 301C, reverse dive, tuck position 1.6. Scores 3, 4 1/2, 3 1/2, 4, 4 1/2, 4 1/2, 4. Next up, Isaac with dive 5221D, back 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position 1.7. Scores 6, 6 1/2, 6, 6, 7, 6, 7 1/2. Next up, Nathan, dive 402C, inward, 1 somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 3 1/2, 2, 3 1/2, 1 1/2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2. Next up, Gus with dive 301C, reverse dive, tuck position 1.6. Scores 4 1/2, 5, 5, 5, 5 1/2, 5, 4. Next up, Keegan, dive 202A, back 1 somersault, straight position 1.7. Scores 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6, 4 1/2. The school bell is going to ring in 2 minutes, so I don't know if we want to wait.
Do we want to continue going or stop?
Just wait.
Well, it's the end of the day, so.
Thank you for your patience. Next up, Joshua with dive 403C, inward 1 1/2 somersault, tuck position 2.2. Scores 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2. Next up, Jacob with dive 402C, inward 1 somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 6, 6 1/2, 6, 6, 7, 7, 5 1/2. Next up, Tristan with dive 5221D, back 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position 1.7. Scores 4 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 5, 5, 5, 4 1/2. That concludes round 5. The boards will be closed for a 5-minute break. And then read the results in reverse order.
Because everything's.
set on the set? Coach has yours too. Yes. All right, Bob. I don't know where he is. I'm not his keeper. Hey, good luck, babe. It's a match. How was lunch?
That's usually one that.
That's the one that's your rib.
Before lunch, so I had the noodles, and then at lunch I had the next soup.
Yeah, so far.
So yeah, been eating.
But
Well,
there are a couple of
that
wires that are
soup
loose in there,
looks
and
so freaking tiny, and I can't even stretch it.
It's supposed to be really hard to get on.
So, like, I can't stretch it.
Yeah, I know. But they're supposed to be hard to get on.
All right, well. Yeah, I know. It goes by what people think they're supposed to be, not by what it's actually supposed to be. I think you might want to go take a look at it.
well, Rick made a smaller one.
They are supposed
Because the district wouldn't pay him.
they are supposed to be pretty damn
Make
tight.
that large one.
So
You guys want to pay for it? Bump it out. But we'll use that.
all right.
Yeah, it's not gonna work. The questionable is always the projector.
They have been getting bids on
Yeah. So this is this. So cheaper than that. They actually have a website on all our devices because it's category of content of your website. Category of content. Because for your federally funded, you're bound by student privacy and protection laws, which direct us to specific process permissions when collecting student data. At this time, we're not unable to provide this information. So, now also, please note the letters after Mr. Smith.
Sam, JD, JD.
Juris Doctorate.
Oh, okay.
I'm an attorney. I went to law school.
Okay.
And my CAM, that's anti-money laundering.
okay.
And I've done, I do compliance for privacy for financial institutions. So I'm not sure I understand the privacy concerns. The information is data about their students, strokes of house and license their parents have purchased for each individual. Could you provide some additional information on how the privacy implications were calculated and the website violated? This is the bullshit. She can't answer the question.
No, because she doesn't know.
She doesn't know.
Judges, please return to your seats. The dive order is the same for the next round, round 6. First up, Gabrick with dive 5231D. Back 1 1/2 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position 2.1. Scores 4, 5, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 6. Next up, Xander. Dive 302C, reverse 1 somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 5, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5, 4 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2. Next up, Isaac with dive 301C, reverse dive, tuck position 1.6. Scores. Fail dive. Next up, Nathan. Dive 301C. Reverse dive, tuck position 1.6. Scores 2 and 1/2, 3, 3 and 1/2, 3, 4, 3, 4 and 1/2. Next up, Gus. Dive 101C, forward dive, tuck position 1.2. Scores 6, 6, 6 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2. Next up, Keegan with dive 301C, reverse dive, tuck position 1.6. Scores 4 and 1/2, 6, 5 and 1/2, 4 and 1/2, 5, 5 and 1/2, 4 and 1/2. Next up, Joshua. Dive 5121D. Forward, 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position 1.7. Scores 4 and 1/2, 5, 5 and 1/2, 4 and 1/2, 4 and 1/2, 6, 5. Next up, Jacob. Dive 5321D. Reverse, 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position 1.8. Scores 4 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 5, 6, 5 and 1/2, 5. Next up, Tristan. Dive 302C, reverse 1 somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 5, 5 and 1/2, 6, 5, 5 and 1/2, 5, 5 and 1/2. Starting round 7, Gabrick. Dive 301C, reverse dive, tuck position 1.6. Scores 8 and 1/2, 7 and 1/2, 5, 6 and 1/2, 8, 8, 5 and 1/2. Next up, Xander. Dive 5321D. Reverse 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position 1.8. Scores 5, 5 1/2, 5, 4, 5, 4 1/2, 5 1/2. Next up, Isaac with dive 303C. Reverse 1 1/2 somersault, tuck position 2.1. Scores 6 1/2, 6, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6, 6 1/2. Next up, Nathan with dive 302C. Reverse 1 somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 5, 5, 5, 4 1/2, 5, 4 1/2, 5 1/2. Next up, Gus with dive 112C. Forward, flying 1 somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 6 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6, 5. Next up, Keegan, dive 302C. Reverse 1 somersault, tuck position 1.6. Scores 7, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 5 1/2, 7 1/2, 6 1/2, 6. Next up, Joshua with dive 104C. Forward 2 somersault, tuck position 2.2. Scores 3, 3, 5, 4, 4, 3 1/2, 5 1/2. Next up, Jacob, dive 201B. Back dive, pike position 1.6. Scores 5, 6, 7, 6 1/2, 7 1/2, 6 1/2, 6 1/2. Next up, Tristan with dive 201C. Back dive, tuck position 1.5. Scores 4, 4, 3 1/2, 4, 4, 4, 5. Moving on to round 8. First up is Gabrick with dive 303C. Reverse 1 1/2 somersault, tuck position 2.1. Scores 4, 4, 5, 4 1/2, 5, 4 1/2, 6. Next up, Xander with dive 201C. Back dive, tuck position 1.5. Scores 3, 4 1/2, 4 1/2, 4 1/2, 3 1/2, 5, 4 1/2. Next up, Isaac with dive 203C. Back 1 1/2 somersault, tuck position 2.0. Scores 6, 6, 5, 6 1/2, 6, 6, 6. Next up, Nathan with dive 102B. Forward 1 somersault, pike position 1.5. Scores 5, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6. Next up, Gus with dive 201A. Back dive, straight position 1.7. Scores 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5, 4 1/2. Next up, Keegan with dive 5321D. Reverse 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position 1.8. Scores 5, 6, 5 1/2, 4 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6 1/2. Next up, Joshua with dive 202B. Back 1 somersault, pike position 1.6. Scores 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6, 6, 6. Next up, Jacob with dive 204C. Back 2 somersault, tuck position 2.0. Scores 2 1/2, 3, 4 1/2, 3 1/2, 4, 3, 4 1/2. Next up, Tristan with dive 202C. Back 1 somersault, tuck position 1.5. Scores 3 1/2, 4, 3 1/2, 4 1/2, 4, 4, 3. That concludes round 8. The doors will be open for a 15-minute break for warm-up practice dives. A 15-minute break. We have the scores up to round 8. In 8th place, with a score of 156.25, Xander Moore from Eau Claire Alliance. In 8th, with a score of 165.70, Nathan Jondro, Rice Lake. 7th place, with a score of 192.20, Gus Schmidt-Mischke, River Falls. In 6th place, with a score of 196.05, from Rice Lake, Joshua Cortez. In 5th place, with a score of 212.35, from River Falls, Tristan Patz. In 4th place, with a score of 236.20, from Eau Claire Alliance, Keegan Black. In 3rd place, with a score of 245.75, from Rice Lake, Jacob Jondro. In 2nd place, with a score of 257.80, from Hudson, Isaac McKenzie. In 1st place, with a score of 301.25, from Eau Claire Alliance, Gabrick Hollenbeck.
7, 9, and 3. As a guess.
It's not focusing. Okay.
Oh, no. Did he forget that he was only going
No,
reverse?
he
There?
because his hips, he twisted just a tiny bit and ended up on the corner, very corner of the board. He's like, I can do it, and he's like, oh no, 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 no.
But it was supposed to just be a reverse.
I know. He
But
pulled.
he
He pulled way
went one
too
and a
hard.
half again on that on
I-
four. He went one and a half and like landed on his back.
Yeah, I know.
Like it was like midair, and he realized, oh fuck, I went too.
Yeah,
I did too much.
It's like staking over again. It's happened at stake. I'm like, let's please not repeat that. Let's just repeat that. So would be very appreciated.
What I can get is like they gave him like nothing, but this guy here, Sandy guy, that guy fucking did it.
Well, that's why I
And there was another one that did it too. Because he already did something more than just like, and what does this mean in circle?
We're going to get started again momentarily. This is a new dive order, starting with round 9. Diving first, Xander Moore, Eau Claire. Second, Nathan Jondro, Rice Lake. Third, Gus Schmidt-Mitchke, River Falls. Fourth, Joshua Cortez, Rice Lake. Fifth, Tristan Patz, River Falls. Sixth, Keegan Black, Eau Claire Alliance. Seventh, Jacob Jondro, Rice Lake. Eighth, Isaac McKenzie, Hudson. And diving ninth, Gabrick Hollenbeck, Eau Claire Alliance. Beginning round 9. Diving first, Xander with dive 202A, back 1 somersault, straight, difficulty 1.7. Scores 5 and 1/2, 5, 5 and 1/2, 5, 5, 5 and 1/2, 5. Next, Nathan, dive 5121D, forward 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position 1.7. Scores. Three and one half, 2, 3 and one half, 3 and one half, 4, 2 and one half, 4. Next up, Gus. Dive 202C, back 1 somersault, tuck position 1.5. Scores 6, 5 and one half, 6, 7, 6, 6, 5 and one half. Next up, Joshua. Dive 401B, inward dive, pike position 1.5. Scores 5, 6, 6, 6, 7, 6, 6. Next up, Tristan with dive 5211A. Back dive, 1/2 twist, straight position 1.8. Scores 7, 6, 5 and one half, 5 and one half, 5 and one half, 5 and one half, 5. Next up, Keegan with dive 201A. Back dive, straight position 1.7. Scores 4, 3, 4 and one half, 4, 4, 4, 3 and one half. Next up, Jacob. Dive 5122D, forward 1 somersault, 1 twist, free position 1.9. Scores 4, 5, 5, 4 and one half, 5, 5, 5 and one half. Next up, Isaac with dive 204C. Back 2 somersault, tuck position 2.0. Scores 4 and one half, 4 and one half, 5 and one half, 5 and one half, 4 and one half, 5, 4 and one half. Next up, Gabrick, dive 201C. Back dive, tuck position 1.5. Scores 6 1/2, 7, 5 1/2, 7, 6 1/2, 7, 7. Now starting round 10. First up is Xander with dive 5-2-2-1-D. Back 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position, 1.7. Scores 3 1/2, 4, 3 1/2, 3 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 5. Next up, Nathan with dive 201C. Back dive, tuck position, 1.5. Scores 3 1/2, 4 1/2, 5, 5, 4 1/2, 4 1/2, 4. Next up, Gus with dive 5-2-2-1-D. Back 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position, 1.7. Scores 4, 4 1/2, 5, 5, 4, 5, 5 1/2. Next up, Joshua. Dive 302C, reverse 1 somersault, tuck, 1.6. Scores 6 1/2, 5 1/2, 5 1/2, 6 1/2, 6, 6, 5 1/2. Next up, Tristan with dive 402C, inward 1 somersault, tuck position, 1.6. Scores 6, 6 1, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 6, 5 1/2, 5. Next up, Keegan. Dive 5-1-2-2-D. Forward 1 somersault, 1 twist, free position, 1.6. Scores 6, 6 1/2, 7, 6 1/2, 6 1/2, 7, 5 1/2. Next up, Jacob. Dive 105C, forward 2 1/2 somersault, tuck position, 2.4. fail dive. Next up, Isaac, dive 5231D, back 1 1/2 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position, 2.1. Scores 6, 6, 6, 6 1/2, 6, 6 1/2, 6 1/2. Next up, Gabrick, dive 404C, inward 2 somersault, tuck position 2.8. Scores 7 1/2, 6 1/2, 7 1/2, 6 1/2, 8, 7, 7. Now starting round 11. First up, Xander, dive 5121D, forward 1 somersault, 1/2 twist, free position 1.7. Scores 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 3 1/2, 4, 4, 4. Next up, Nathan with dive 104C, forward 2 somersault, tuck position 2.2. Scores 3 1/2, 3 1/2, 5, 5, 4, 4 1/2, 4 1/2. Next up, Gus with dive 102C, forward 1 somersault, tuck position 1.4. Scores 7, 6, 5 1/2, 7, 5 1/2, 7 1/2, 5. Next up, Joshua, dive 5211A, back dive 1/2 twist, straight position 1.6. Scores 5 1/2, 5, 5, 4 1/2, 5, 6, 4 1/2. Next up, Tristan, dive 301C, reverse dive, tuck position 1.6. Scores 3 1/2, 4, 3 1/2, 4, 4, 3 1/2, 5. Next up, Keegan, dive 5124D, forward 1 somersault, 2 twists, free position 2.3. Scores 6, 5 and 1/2, 6, 5, 6, 5, 5 and 1/2. Next up, Jacob with dive 401B. Inward dive, pike position 1.5. Scores 6, 7, 5, 8, 7, 7, 6 and 1/2. Next up, Isaac with dive 404C. Inward, 2 somersault, tuck position 2.8. Scores 6, 6, 6 and 1/2, 5 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2, 4 and 1/2, 6 and 1/2. Next up, Gabrick, dive 405C. Inward, 2 and 1/2 somersault, tuck position 3.1. Scores 3 and 1/2, 5, 6, 5, 4, 5, 6. That concludes our diving competition. Thank you.
That's the order. That's the one. Yeah, that's the final score.
I have our final diving scores for the Big Rivers Conference. In ninth place with a score of 220.00 from Eau Claire Alliance, Xander Moore. In 8th place with a score of 232.40 from Rice Lake, Nathan Jondro. In 7th place with a score of 269.75 from River Falls, Gus Schmidt-Mischke. In 6th place with a score of 278.05 from Rice Lake, Joshua Cortez. In 5th place with a score of 290.05 from River Falls, Tristan Patz. In 4th place with a score of 305.00 from Rice Lake, Jacob Jondro. In 3rd place with a score of 332.75 from Eau Claire Alliance, Keegan Black. In second place with a score of 376.45 from Hudson, Isaac McKenzie. And your BRC conference champion with a score of 438.70 from Eau Claire Alliance, Gabrick Hollenbeck. Congratulations. I will repeat the names so we can stand on the podium. In the eighth place, Nathan Jondro from Rice Lake. Seventh place, Gus from River Falls. Gus Schmidt-Mischke from River Falls. Sixth place, Joshua Cortez, Rice Lake. Fifth place, Tristan Patz, River Falls. Fourth place, Jacob Jondro, Rice Lake. Third place, Keegan Black, Eau Claire Alliance. Second place, Isaac McKenzie, Hudson. First place, Gabrick Hollenbeck, Eau Claire Alliance. Congratulations, divers. Let's have a nice round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, divers. We'll continue with a separate live stream for the swimming events starting at 5:55 p.m. Thank you. Bye.